Hello everyone and welcome to this video which is in our Human Game series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler and we are continuing our look at the wonderful women's quarter-final candidates match between Anna Muzychuk and Muzychuk-Koneru. We saw in a previous video two Petroffs from the main part of the match, and we saw that Anna Muzychuk won the fourth game, the last game of that match, to take the game into tie-breaks. And the Petroff thrills and spills, how often do you hear that, continued in the tie-break. And I want to have a look at those two white games, both ending in draws in the end, but they could have been anything but. Let's have a look. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6, d4, knight takes c4, d takes c5. Muzychuk had put black under a fair amount of pressure in the two standard games, so was well worth continuing with this. And in actual fact, Koneru was the first to vary here. In the main matches, Koneru had played queen d7, which is an interesting but slightly spicy move. Here, for the tie breaks, Koneru went back to the most solid idea, which is knight takes d2. Bishop takes d2, bishop e7, bishop d3, c5, and then c3. And once again, you know, we've got this pretty standard setup for white, where we've got this this pawn on e5, which stops black pieces from coming to f6 or d6. If black castles kingside in this position, then the h7 pawn might be a target. So black has to find a method of development, and here Koneru did something that's very unusual. Actually, I think it was maybe a novelty even. Played the move bishop g4. Now, the normal move is knight c6. And, you know, trying to work out why did Koneru play bishop g4, I can only assume that she was a bit worried about a move like h3, for example, stopping bishop g4. In all fairness, h3 is not the most common reply, and it hasn't scored amazingly well for white. So, and when I ran my engines in this line, they didn't find anything, you know, remarkable. So it is a slight, well, not mystery, but yeah, I'm slightly interested to know, you know, what was the reason for playing bishop g4. And actually, you know, Koneru did this twice in both black games in the tie breaks. So quite interesting. So h3 was the follow-up, bishop h5, and now we have two things to look at. Later on we're going to have a look at what Muzychuk did in the second white game, and well, what you saw in the standard play, that well, the first time that Muzychuk faced something, she played well, but you know, didn't manage to put enormous amounts of pressure on the black position. The second time round, she was ready, and well, that certainly happened in this game as well. In the first game, Muzychuk played castles, knight c6, rook e1, queen d7, bishop f4, which had been played before. It's pretty much the normal line here. And here Koneru played a novelty. So in actual fact, we were following an Ali Reza game. This was Ali Reza Firouzja against Nayer, Riga 2021. And queen e6, which is Stockfish's favourite move, was played. Bishop e2, castles, queen d2, and now bishop g6 was played in this game. And well, we got this: rook d1, bishop e4, knight g5, takes, d4, bishop f1. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of a complicated position. I wouldn't really say that that white is necessarily better. In actual fact, I played a lot of engine games from here, and Leela actually was very keen on queen e6, bishop e2, castles, queen d2, and now not bishop g6, but simply h6. And there were a lot of games between Stockfish and Leela in this variation. Very nice idea from Leela. It looked really like, you know, black's a little bit restricted. This queen on e6 is a little bit awkward, but this move d4 frees everything, because after c takes d4, we've got bishop b4, and this little guy is in trouble. So bishop g4 was played, queen c4, takes bishop b4, queen c1, very clever move. Queen takes d4, rook d1, and then this clever little move again. Takes, e6. And, well, I mean, Leela got this against Stockfish, I don't know how many times, 5, 6, and held a draw consummately every single time. So, yeah, I mean, this looks, you know, basically quite okay for black, really. But I mean, it's complicated. I'm sure there's stuff to discover in there as well. So what Koneru did was very interesting. Played the move a6. What is the idea of a6? I don't know whether Muzychuk guessed this correctly, because her next move seems to be directed maybe more against another part of a6 rather than what actually happened. The key point is that Koneru wants to bring this knight round d8 to e6. Very nice square for the knight, and if you remember from the game's the standard time control, Koneru also ended up with a knight on e6. So it's obviously something she likes quite a lot in these positions. The big problem is that if you go knight d8 immediately, we go g4. Well, the idea is that we are going to be coming in with stuff like e6 and knight e5, and then bishop b5. That's the key thing. Once the queen moves away, we get a bishop b5 check. And, well, this is quite an interesting line, knight e6 and knight f4. But then we hit you with e6. And if you go knight e6, I go knight e5, I go bishop b5 and queen f3. And this was very, very strong for white. Very strong initiative indeed. And Leela was not surviving against Stockfish. Yeah, that is a bit of a problem, basically, the fact that the b5 square isn't covered. So the idea of the move a6 is just spending a tempo covering this b5 square, and now black is intending to play knight d8 and knight e6. So Muzychuk played a4 here. When you know the idea, you know that that knight d8 is coming, it starts to make you think about what other moves could be useful. Not easy to find a useful move. The best I could find was to go bishop g3 here, with the idea that if knight d8 we go e6, haha. And if you take on e6 here, I go rook e5. So the point of bishop g3 here was that the bishop is not hanging on f4. So I'm attacking this bishop. If you go bishop g6, I got rook takes d5, which is very sneaky. Takes bishop b5 check is very nice. So you go after rook e5, you take on f3. I go queen takes f3, and actually it's quite a nice initiative for white. I'm going rook d1. This pawn's going to be weak. I've got some threats against the king side. If ever you castle king side, I've also got moves like bishop f5 as well, and this knight is under pressure. So yeah, I mean bishop g3 might be quite interesting if you're sure that the opponent is going to play knight d8. What Muzychuk played was a4, which prevents b5, of course, and also means that white can play the move a5, and just try and get some gain from the slight weakening of this queenside structure. But black can now go knight d8. The b5 square is covered, so actually none of the tactics work at all. So g4 was played. The engines actually are looking at playing e6 here, knight e6 and bishop f5, and try and make something of this pin on the knight here. But well, we got a few different things actually. Oh, actually, I think maybe the clearest was what Stockfish did. Took on f3, went g6, and then castle queenside, and then just swapped off queens, and that was more or less it. So yeah, e6 not particularly impressive really as a winning attempt. G4 is a much nicer move. Knight e6, bishop g3, bishop g6, and bishop f5. And yeah, I mean this bishop's a little bit annoying on f5, but this knight on e6. You'll see how important this knight on e6 is. It blocks this diagonal. And this means that black can actually castle queenside now. The bishop on f5 isn't preventing that. The engines wanted to castle kingside. They thought that black was fine, but queen c6 was played. A5, h5, putting a bit of pressure in. Queen d3. H takes g. Yeah, the engines were less keen on that. Engines just wanted to castle queenside here, and actually they were really starting to like black at this stage, which I can sort of understand really. I mean, the black king's quite safe. The white king looks a little bit odd really, with the possibility of hg and opening the h file, and we've got ideas like c4 and d4. So I mean, actually the engines wanted to play queen c2 and queen a4 to desperately swap off queens, before things go difficult. So yeah, I mean, maybe that was a little bit of a chance there, but yeah, Koneru played c4. Yeah, I mean, the engine just sort of thought that these moves were not the most accurate at all, and that White somehow is just managing to exchange off pieces and neutralize any small initiative that White had. I mean, it looked quite dangerous. I will definitely give you that. You know, when you go d4, this looked quite worrying somehow. I mean, there's you know, all sorts of pressure here on f3. You know, and the possibility that you could either push the pawn or you could open it and bring the rook in as well. So, you know, all quite dangerous. But yeah, Muzychuk played very concretely in actual fact. Knight e4, queen c2, knight d2, queen c3, just absorbing that, and Black basically didn't have any more to do in that position. So that was quite a thrilling game, but I think you can say that you know, from that point of view, Koneru really showed her very good opening preparation there, and kind of won that opening battle. Really, I mean, White still had some you know, some interesting chances, but yeah, you know, I think looking at the Black side, you know, you play something interesting, even got a slightly better position, I think. So not bad at all. But in the last White game of the tiebreak there, Muzychuk had to face this line again. I mean, I suppose maybe, you know, if there was, you could make one criticism of Koneru's openings, it's that she tended to repeat stuff an awful lot, and well, it can be risky. I mean, sometimes repeating stuff, you know, it's just you know, you find something that your opponent doesn't like, and then you keep on hammering him with it. The match of Vladimir Kramnik against Kasparov is a case in point, where, you know, Kramnik understood that Kasparov really didn't like the Berlin and kept on hammering him with it. But well, certainly in the main event, the second time round, Muzychuk found a really interesting line and played it really brilliantly. So yeah, you might expect that a slightly unusual line, she might find something, and she certainly did, because this move, bishop f5, was very, very nice indeed. It's a Leela move for all you Leela fans out there. What's the idea of bishop f5? Well, I mean, simply, it's pretty much the same idea as we had in the game, the last game. You know, you're going to play g2 to g4, and you're going to have that bishop on f5, and it's going to be difficult for Black to, you know, remove that bishop, because the pawns come, and you get these strong pawns on e5 and f5. But you're doing it very early before Black has managed to get a knight onto e6. So actually, you know, this bishop on f5 will be preventing Black from castling queenside. And the only way you're going to be able to castle queenside in this position is if you remove that bishop with bishop g6 takes f5. But yeah, that is going to be risky. And I think that Muzychuk understood quite well that, again, Koneru had a little bit of a tendency to castle queenside in these Petroff positions. I don't think she really wanted to castle kingside. It does look quite scary, absolutely. So actually, this move was really annoying on a number of levels, and it was in fact a novelty, you know. So a very strong idea, I think. So knight c6 was played, g4, bishop g6, and now Stockfish wants to play the queen to c2. Which is quite interesting, probably a little bit more directed against kingside castling. But Muzychuk played queen e2, which is Leela's move and also very good. And I think probably understood that Koneru was unlikely to want to castle kingside. You know, even if she felt she had to, she probably wouldn't be so happy. And well, I mean, I can understand why you wouldn't be happy, right? I mean, h4, h5 is coming in. You know, it's not. You've got to be an engine to like this stuff. So queen b6 played. Yeah, I mean, the engines here were playing castles, queen a5, king b1, queen a4. You'll see this maneuver later in the game. It wasn't so successful for Koneru, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely a typical maneuver here. Rook e1, rook d8, and then trying very quickly for counterplay with d4, you know, before White really gets going. And well, I mean, this was very sharp position. b3, c4. And then, yeah, some tactics around the e5 pawn here, which you know, eventually resolved. I mean, it was just a very complicated position, you know. And well, I mean, as a White player against the Petroff, you've got to be happy with this, right? You've got attacking chances, attacking possibilities. You know, nothing wrong with it. Koneru played queen b6, castles, and then here played bishop f5. And actually, the engines think this is a really serious mistake. They were. I mean, essentially, you know, at this point, basically every single engine game I'm playing that was between Leela and Stockfish was ending in a white win. And if Stockfish can't hold it, there's something seriously wrong with the position. It was all done, of course, to castle queenside, which, as we said, I think is the plan that Koneru favours in these structures. But yeah, and there's just a big problem with this G7 pawn. I mean, if you play G6, stuff like F6 is horrible anyway. But I mean, Knight G5 was what the engines were playing. Rook D5, Rook D1, Bishop E3. I mean, there's just dark square weaknesses everywhere. We're lining up on this pawn. We'll support the E pawn with F4. And Leela just crunched Stockfish in this, which is a good indication of how difficult it is. If you go Rook G8, I simply go Bishop F4. And I can think of so many ways to improve my position. Lining up on the G file, lining up on the D file against the pawn. I can tap my king away. First of all, basically anything is going to work. So Leela did a pretty decent job, really. I mean, Leela really tried to shake things up here. Played the move D3 here, Queen C2 check. The rooks came off. We got Bishop A3. Desperately hoping for a perpetual with Queen C3 and Queen C2, but Stockfish just played Rook B1, now threatening to take the bishop. Bishop C5, Rook C1, and all of a sudden it's quite grim for black. So Queen E2 was played, and this is a piece sacrifice, but it's just not good enough. Bishop E3, we get rid of the knight. And then we go King C2, and then, well, we're just going to bring the knight into D3 and go King D2, and that's just going to be it. Helps if you're an engine to finish this off properly, but it's definitely winning for white. So this whole concept of taking on F5 and castling queenside, it just puts Koneru into huge difficulties. Now, what Koneru did was fight back, which I think, in a rapid game, that is a pretty good idea, really. Rook G7, Bishop F6, Rook F7, Bishop E5, and at least you're looking threatening here. The one problem is if you're playing an engine in this type of position, then all of these nice-looking threats don't actually add up to much. Obviously we've got a threat of Bishop takes C3. That's rather nasty. That has to be dealt with. The engines are just saying takes and Rook H7. Because after Knight C4 we go Bishop E3, and it looks like you might have some pins and some stuff, but simply you don't. And we're just coming through, or even worse, coming through with this. And there were some amazing Stockfish wins in this. Let's have a little look how one of those went. Rook D6, Rook G1, Knight E3, Rook G7. This rook on the 8 is pinned, so you can't move the knight away. D4, now we take it. We go F6, and we go Rook B7. What's the point of this move? Well, if you go Queen B7, I can go Rook B7, and I can go Queen B5 and take off the rook and also cover the E pawn. So Queen C6 was played, Queen G4, Rook E6, Queen G8, Rook E8, Rook HC7, King D8, all these tactics. Rook C6, Rook F1 check, just getting out of that attack, Rook G8, and you sort of have a look at it and you think, oh, are we actually winning this? But we really are. Stockfish just chose the obviously the most ridiculous way of doing it. Rook A7 threatening mate, and then we've just got this little shimmy of the rooks, very typical on the 8th rank, just gaining time all the time. And then the rook comes round. Well, he comes round to H5. It can also come round to E5, and we'll just pick up the pawn. Or you can defend it on the 7th rank, but you can never get further. Really, amazing play from Stockfish there. But it's not obvious. I will say. Definitely agree with that. And I think Muzychuk's move was very sensible. Just Queen F1, getting out of the way there, and actually, making room for this move, Rook E1. So black here had a decent idea actually. Black had the move knight a5, threatening to come into c4, and it sort of forces white to take on e5 now. And to be honest, yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that this is all right for black. But yeah, somehow, yeah, these threats of knight c4 and queen a5 and rook e2 are actually quite dangerous. So yeah, white ends up having to just misplace the pieces a little bit just to try and chase the rook away. But yeah, I mean, it's quite tough. This knight comes into d3 next. Rook b6, knight f3, knight e5, check, rook f2, and rook e2, and knight e5. You know, it's well, white's gained quite a few pawns, but they're all broken. You know, and yeah, I mean, black managed to hold this somehow, but yeah, very, very hard to see somehow. But that was the kind of attacking setup you need to go for. What Koneru did, Koneru plays a very typical one, and we've seen it already in some Stockfish variations. But actually, in this game, in this position specifically, it's just not right. This queen on a4 is not really combining with anything else very well. There is a threat of queen e4 check, but actually, if Muzychuk had just played, instead of bishop g5, had just played rook e1, attacking this bishop on e5, it would have been very unpleasant indeed. So after h6, I think it was to cover bishop g5, we just go b3 and we go f6, for example. And we're just, you know, we're just going to start taking stuff and going rook e7, and this f pawn is so dangerous. And yeah, there's not really enough play on the against the white king at the moment. So yeah, this was a big moment for Muzychuk, and rook e1 would have been really, really strong. But bishop g5 played. I mean, bear in mind that this was all played at rapid, so you know, I mean, it's like really, really hard to foresee all this. It's a very unusual position. But bishop g5 actually gave black a massive chance of forcing a draw here, which is to go bishop c3. But I have to say it's far from obvious. B takes c3 and d4. And you sort of think, well, is that it really? d4? Is that the best you can do? But it's actually very, very strong indeed. The problem is that if you go bishop d8, I go d takes c3. And I've got all sorts of ideas like queen b4 check and also c2 check takes d1. So I'm winning a lot of material. And if you go c takes d4, I start giving checks, which is perfectly fine. I could even continue a bit. Bishop c1 was best. Takes, takes. Rook h7, queen e4 check. But yeah, there's lots of loose stuff. We pick up the knight on f3, and black's going to defend this fine. So bishop c3, followed by d4. Again, very hard to spot. I think in a rapid game, certainly, I'd be very proud to spot it. And I definitely feel quite pleased myself as well in a normal game. So, yeah, you know, tricky. Rook d6 was played. And now rook h7 gave black an extra chance. I guess that Muzychuk had not seen this idea of bishop c3 somehow. Because to be honest, with the rook on d6 and the possibility that the rook might come over, yeah, you know, it really should really start raising some flags there. Again, rook e1 would have been really strong here. I mean, we're even pinning this bishop to the rook. You can't move it at all because we've virtually got mate on e8 there. So yeah, you know, that would have just been absolutely awful there. But rook h7 and Koneru got a chance. Bishop c3, which he took. And yeah, I mean, here Muzychuk, I think probably didn't dare to take on c3. And well, I can imagine. I mean, you don't actually know, do you? You know, whether this is going to work or not. Is this a draw or is this a loss? But all you can see is that, you know, there's a lot of danger simply. I think maybe, you know, you could spot the idea of rook h6. And say, well, at least I'm covering the rook coming over, so you know, I shouldn't be worse in this position. But what Muzychuk played was b3, which is really, really risky. You know, I mean, you've just lost a major pawn on your in front of your king, and yeah, you know, you're just carrying on basically. But okay, you know, there are a lot of threats. You know, if white gets the bishop to f4, for example, we've got ideas of rook c7. So yeah, I mean, super, super sharp. What a game! Queen a5 was played by Koneru. Bishop f4, and now knight b4, and this was the key mistake. I mean, actually, instead of queen a5, I think queen a3 could have been played also on the previous move, threatening mate on b2, and after bishop c1, we go queen b4, and the nice thing about queen b4 is that we're stopping bishop f4, and now we're actually aiming to go c4, and this is really strong. This is really strong. I mean, the engine thinks that the black is clearly better in this position, and actually a lot of games now were heading for black wins, most of them, in actual fact. Yeah, I mean, this was a big moment for Koneru. I mean, actually, I think this was the last game of the tiebreak, so the tension must have been amazing there. Koneru played knight b4, which is incredibly natural, and then a4 took place, and now unfortunately there is no breakthrough. White's got a very powerful threat. I mean, bishop d6, rook c7, so you've got to do something about that rook. The best line was to play rook d7 and swap them off like this. Well, you could imagine, I mean, that black king is weak, but the white king's a little bit airy as well. You just need a little bit of regrouping from black. And you could imagine that there could be some counterplay at least. A bit surprised that it ends up being equal, because I do find this king rather worrying, to be honest. But my engines were drawing all these, and finding the position fairly equal. After Koneru's rook c6, there's this incredibly strong move, queen b5, and suddenly white is winning again. I mean, it just kills all of black's play dead, basically. We're attacking b7. We've got we're threatening the exchange of queens. What can you do here? Koneru took on b5, a takes b5, and went all in with rook e2, and this is completely winning for white. I mean, this would have been the match for Muzychuk if she'd managed to get through this. There's a couple of good ways of playing it, actually. There's rook d2 is one way. You just have to see this little idea, this little intermediate move, and then you take on c6, and you go knight takes d2. And rook h7, and it's clear that you're completely winning here. King e8, bishop e3, rook f5, bishop c5. So that was one way of winning. But what Muzychuk did was probably even better in actual fact. But requires a little bit more precision. So bishop d2 was played, bishop d2, b takes c6, bishop c3, setting up a little mate method, king c1, knight a2, or king a1, knight a2. So total chaos on the board here. And here Muzychuk, presumably very, very short of time, didn't manage to find the best line here. The best move here was to go knight d2, just block out that 7th rank. And after bishop d2, we go rook g1. What is actually happening here? Well, very simply, I am just threatening rook to g8 checkmate. That is what's happening here. So there's not very much you can do. Basically, you're just completely lost in this position. So total drama, right? I mean, I think the one thing you do have to see is that after bishop g5. If we take there, then I think I'm right in saying that we just go check here. King b2, rook e2, which is quite an unusual little draw here. If you go king c3, I've got rook c2 checkmate, so you can't go there. And if you go back to c1, then I've got knight a2 check, which is drawing. It's the standard mechanism, king d1, knight c3. But of course, the point of once black has gone bishop g5, this whole drawing mating stuff has disappeared, and I just go h4 and chase your bishop away, and you can go bishop d8 and block, and I go f6. It's only about getting a check on the back rank there, and if you go knight a2, then I go rook g3. I'm covering this c3 square, and it's just going to be curtains. f7 is coming in. Not trivial, not trivial to work your way through all that, which is why I think, rather than bishop d2 earlier, I think this move, rook d2, was much simpler. It's just one intermediate move that you've got to spot, and then you're home and dry, really. But yeah, rook g1 was played by Muzychuk. presumably with flag hanging. And yeah, this ended up as a draw. Check, 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 and a draw. So, I mean, amazing drama there, and you know, really great play. I really loved. You know, I thought this was an amazing pair of games. You know, especially considering, you know, the tension and the occasion. Very impressed with. Well, I liked first of all Koneru's A6 followed by knight D8 to E6. That was a very nice plan indeed. And yeah, I was very impressed with Muzychuk's response. You know, a couple of games later, bishop f5, which was a very nice plan, and I think very well tailored to how she thought that Koneru would play the position. Yeah, I mean, the position was quite desperate for black. You know, just chose this wrong path in the opening. But I mean, yeah, Koneru really chose activity very well, which you know, especially in a rapid game, I think is very important. And well, you know, we saw in the ensuing play that you know, I think probably Muzychuk had more chances to win as white, but you know, I think Koneru had a huge opportunity just a little bit later on to win and to take the match as well. So yeah, you know, really amazing play, and again, you know, I think these two games together, well, if you just use these, then you know, you've got an amazing repertory against the Petroff, you know, which is not an easy opening to find stuff against, but somehow Muzychuk found some amazing ideas against it. So there we are. I hope you enjoyed that. We may well take a little look at some more games where Koneru was white, because those were very interesting as well, and it would be nice also to show Koneru's best win of the match, which was very, very nice indeed as well. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. If you enjoyed, why not give a like, subscribe to the channel, take a look at my new book and Chessable course, The Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, which is all about how to use engines, as I'm doing in when analysing these games, to improve your analysis, improve your play, act as a real training partner for you. But anyway, thanks very much for watching, and hope to see you at the next video. Thanks for watching.